Hi, I'm Joe Feeks, editor of Poultry Health Today, and with me are Mike Czarick and Brian Fairchild of the University of Georgia. And gentlemen, we're going to talk about lighting. I understand that you did a study in a couple of broiler houses, and you were really targeting what you call deep body temperature. Let's define that first.
Basically, what we were doing is trying to measure the actual internal body temperature. So what we did is we placed a temperature sensor inside the body cavity of the bird, the abdominal cavity.
And what exactly prompted this study in the first place? Was there some event or concern?
This is a series that we've been doing. We started doing this research, I'm going to say about 3, maybe 4 years ago during the summers, and it's just sort of built. One year we started working with airspeed. Next year we started adding temperature and air velocity, and this year we were adding the body temperature component to it.
And what exactly were you looking for?
What we're looking for is management factors that affect bird temperature, bird comfort. And a lot of the things that we do are, they're indirect measurements. We can measure air temperature, we can measure relative humidity, but really we'd like to know how that impacts body temperature in the birds.
So tell me more about how the study was set up. How many farms were involved? Were they all commercial farms?
Yeah, there was 6 farms involved with this from about 4 different integrators. And what we did is we used one house on each farm, and we would set data loggers up to record temperature, relative humidity, and then we put the temperature sensor inside the body cavity of the bird and just monitored everything each minute over the period of 2 weeks prior to catching during hot weather. That's kind of worst case scenario. Big birds, hot weather.
And what was the reason for using the market age birds? Are you really ultimately looking at just what the heat does between the time they leave the farm until the time they get to processing? Or?
Good question. Really, the reason we focus on that particular time is because they're running the fans almost constantly. So we don't have to worry about making adjustments in our calculations for different air speeds when they start shutting fans off at night. By that point in the flock, on big birds, they're running fans 24 hours, 7 days a week to help remove the heat and keep those birds comfortable and eating.
Now, Mike, you're an engineer. What was your role in this study, and what were you looking for?
My role, basically the instrumentation side, setting up the systems to measure the air temperature, the air velocity, outside temperature, humidity, and all those types of factors, water consumption. So more of an instrumentation role, where Brian's role is really more of the interpretation of the data.
And again, tell me about these monitors that you use in the birds. How do these work? How do you get them in the birds?
They are actually about the size of a Tylenol capsule, relatively that size. And it just involves a small incision. We don't have to anesthetize the bird. We just use some lidocaine and just numb the area, small incision, slip it into the body cavity, and 2 sutures, and we do give put a little bit of antibiotic cream on there, and maybe 1 shot of antibiotics the following day, just to fight off infection, because they are sitting on the litter, and we could get some contamination that way. But we've had very good luck with this. This is our first summer using it. One of our grad students has been testing these sensors, and they've proven quite accurate and sensitive device for measuring bird body temperature.
So what were the findings of your research?
What we found is that, temperatures tend to drop at night, birds will settle down, and what we saw is that bird body temperature actually will increase during their resting period. Now, if you look at a lot of other animals, rats, humans, body temperature work has been done in them, and their body temperature tends to decrease at night. So what we think is going on is that when these birds sit down, they are reducing their surface area. No air is moving under the birds, around the birds. I mean, they're kind of sitting down. It reduces that surface area, and so it impacts the amount of heat they can lose. And when we talk about long dark periods, that's what we found, is that the longer the dark period, the higher the differential in temperatures that you would see.
So what are the takeaway messages for the broiler producers in Georgia and beyond?
You know, what we've learned from this is that we shouldn't be turning the lights off right at dusk, right when the sun goes down. We should wait until midnight, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, give it time to move that air around the birds to help cool them down. And we need to be cognizant of how long of a dark period we're giving them, because we did see that the longer the dark period, the higher differential we saw in temperature, body temperature increase.
But certainly, and Mike, you could comment on this, you mentioned to producers about leaving the lights on longer. I mean, they're going to think, oh no, well that's more energy, that's more costs. Is there a way of measuring the return on investment of making some of these other changes that Brian has described?
Really, if you look at the power usage of the lights, whether they run them at night or don't, is not significant, especially with more and more people using fluorescent lights and LEDs. The most important thing is people don't realize how much their lighting program at night is affecting their heat stress during the day. People tend to concentrate too much on what's happening during the day, and then at night say, oh, it's cool outside, the birds will be fine. Our research has shown that probably the biggest factor on bird temperature isn't necessarily airspeed and air temperature. One of the biggest factors is the lighting program. And if you have very long dark periods, you could actually be increasing heat stress during the day, because the longer the day length, the more they'll spread that feed consumption over the course of the day, and the more consistent the temperature is. But if the lights are off for a long period of time, they're going to try to eat the same amount of feed in a much shorter period of the time, which aggravates this whole system. We get a big peak during the day because they're eating a lot of feed, and at night we can get a secondary peak because all of a sudden lights go off, they sit down, they sit in that litter's like sitting on a warm blanket, and it just traps that heat within them. So we never really went out looking to think whether lighting programs are the big thing. We were really trying to concentrate on airspeed and temperatures, and it was really an eye-opening moment for us when we saw, boy, we could do all this stuff right, but if we don't really think about our lighting program, we could actually making our heat stress so much worse.
And it's interesting because you're looking at it as a lighting experiment, or focusing on the engineering here, but it really comes down to behavior, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. These birds are sitting down long periods of time, and the longer that dark period is too, the longer they're off food and water. And that tends to see, what we were looking at is the total change in body temperature, and the longer they're off, they don't have that feed that they're digesting, so their body temperature, that might be one of the factors that causes the body temperature to go down. And then whenever the lights come on, not only have they been sitting down, not being able to lose that heat, but then they start eating a lot of feed, and because they're hungry, and that affects their body temperature as well. So we're looking at a multifactorial process that's affecting their body temperature.
So what's the next step in your research?
It's really continuing into birds, and just going out there, measuring the bird body temperature during what the growers normally do. We don't tell the growers how to run their houses. We're there learning as much as they are. So when we put these sensors out in the field, a lot of times we don't know what we're going to learn, because the grower will do something different, might be good, might be bad. So we're learning. So the whole focus of this project in a way is we're just learning from what the growers are doing and how their management practices that we might not think have an impact actually do have an impact on big bird heat stress.
Well, it's fascinating, and I'll look forward to seeing some of your follow-up work on this. We've been talking to Mike Czarick and to Brian Fairchild from the University of Georgia. Gentlemen, thanks again for explaining your work.
You're welcome.
Thank you.